All right, hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. Now able to do some of these in person, which is really, really cool. And my guest today is Mack Beggs. Mack, you are a trans athlete advocate. We were just saying, it's like, what's the label that we kind of, put you in? Because it's a whole bunch of different things like influencer, activist, athlete, all that kind of stuff. But I reached out to you because I think that the issue of trans sports, Laurel Hubbard going to the Olympics now and stuff like that, it's like really controversial. And the whole point of my podcast is to bring nuance into these conversations. I have talked about you in my class for a while. I mean, it's been a couple of years since I think you were on like the national stage for it. And I never thought to reach out to you. I don't know why. And then I just was talking about you, and then I was like, oh, let me see if he has an Instagram. And then you did, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna tag you, and then I'll reach out to you. So I really appreciate that you're even in LA to be able to do this. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
It's awesome being here. I think just I have a whole other respect level for you from just being a teacher and reaching out. I think you're actually probably the first teacher that has really publicly that I've seen acknowledge the fact that this is an issue that we really need to address, because not only is this topic addressing the fact that it's attacking trans kids in sports, but it's attacking women in sports. It's attacking the non-binary system in general. And I think that this issue alone stems deeper than just the social institution of just being trans.
I think people are just scared to touch it. I think it's there's stuff like that with race too, and I just touch it all. I'm just how are we ever going to figure this stuff out? And trans athletes, it hasn't been figured out yet. It hasn't. It's still messy. We're still working our way through this. And I think that we have to have these honest conversations if we're going to figure it out, because it's getting so short-sighted and myopic and things like that. So, can you just share what your story is? I could, because I've told it several times to my students and stuff like that, but what's your story? How did you become get on the national stage where a teacher in LA, when you're from Texas, and teacher in LA is talking about you? How did that come up?
I competed all my life. Literally I did softball, basketball, I did track, I did pole vault. I was one of those kids that you would say was an all-around athlete, et cetera, et cetera. And I exceeded in every sport that I was in. And I was going through a lot of personal issues when I was growing up, especially junior high, figuring out who I was, figuring stuff out with my family. So it was just inner and outer forces, just developing as a person. And then also having to come to terms with I'm an actual guy. I know that I was born female, but I have these feelings of who do I even talk to about this? I feel alone. And so I thought wrestling was a great way to be able to counteract those feelings and be able to have a level head on my shoulders, learn life lessons, and knowing jiu-jitsu and doing wrestling, it develops you into a better person. It's definitely life-changing. And there was a ex-coach of mine that everybody knew that I was trans. That's the thing. It's everybody knew that I was trans. I went into high school fully.
This is before you started taking hormones and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And even when I was on hormones, I was on hormone blockers, and I was on hormone blockers for 2.5 years.
So you started when you were what, 16?
Yeah, it would have been 16. I started it's been my 9th grade year. I started my 9th grade year on T.
Okay.
But I was they put me on 0.03 or 0.05 milliliters of testosterone. And when you're taking a puberty blocker, there's what's the point? What's the point of I was basically just injecting myself with just medication for no reason.
It didn't do much.
It didn't do anything. It didn't do much for the longest. After, I think I will admit that my senior year, I do think that with an increase, because I was really going through it during practice. My energy was depleted. I was cutting 10 to 15 pounds a week, every 2 weeks.
You picked arguably the hardest sport.
Yeah,
I mean, wrestling is brutal, man. It's a brutal sport. It doesn't get a lot of praise either. It's not the carrying the quarterback off the field or something like that. In martial arts, it taps into something where it's like, it's not a metaphor. You know, it's not like I'll kick your ass on the tennis court or anything like that. It's like, it's so literal. It's such a literal thing with boxing, wrestling, jujitsu, whatever, any kind of martial arts where you're actually fighting.
You have to like grasp like a higher like concept of like what it really means to like really be out of body and like really kind of like let your body do what it needs to do and what it's like capable of doing.
It's so brutal. Okay, so you're 16, you're taking a little bit of testosterone and you're on hormone blockers and you get into wrestling.
Yeah.
You only got into it freshman year. You didn't wrestle your whole life?
No.
Oh, interesting. But you were an athlete.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just like pertained to it so well. I immediately started like wrestling with the seniors and the sophomores and the juniors. I started wrestling the guys also like my freshman year because I was like, I don't feel comfortable like that. This is like me myself. Like I was like, I don't feel comfortable just like wrestling girls. Like I want to wrestle guys too. And
even before you were on like significant amount of testosterone.
Yeah.
So how were you able to hang with the guys?
Yeah, I was able to hang with the guys. I got beat by girls and guys.
Yeah.
Like it was like a really like there was this one girl that beat me like at districts, regionals, and state for 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
My freshman year and my sophomore year. And it was like so degrading, man.
I guess.
It was so degrading.
I mean, Grace Gundrum she's like 18 now, black belt in jiu-jitsu, but she was the top teen women's jiu-jitsu player. I rolled with her. I was a 185-pound purple belt a couple years ago, and I rolled with her. She was a 92-pound 16-year-old Asian girl, and she locked a triangle choke on me, and I was like, okay, let me just and I had to tap. Like it was unbelievable. Like when you have skill supersedes strength. So, and also you're a freshman, and like I teach in high school, some freshman boys.
As a freshman, dude.
Huh?
I would just stay as a freshman.
Yeah, but like some freshman boys are this big, and some freshman girls because girls hit puberty before guys do, and some 19-year or ninth graders aren't even there yet. So it's fairly competitive, I would guess, in ninth grade between guys and girls, and then it starts to maybe like change a little bit. So you went to state your freshman year.
Yeah.
After just starting wrestling.
Yeah.
Because what is that? Just do you think it's your athleticism? Do you think did you train really hard?
I was struggling. Like I wasn't getting first every single time. Like I would sometimes get second, but I wasn't really getting first, and I wasn't really quite there yet. Like it wasn't clicking like right in my brain. I wasn't doing everything that I needed to do in order to like be the best that I could be.
Yeah.
My coach was like, dude, like I've never seen anybody like pertain to like wrestling like you have in a while. And there was like a few of like the teammates on my team that were like that. That we just had like that instinct to just like want to learn and listen and develop and grow as an athlete and as a person, whether it be like on the mat or off the mat, and in the classroom or out of the classroom. And Coach Clark was awesome. He is awesome. Like he's already developed the program to where the program now we have like two state titles now, which Trinity Wrestling has never on the women's side like got a state title. And we've gotten so good that we had to like change rankings like in our school system. And like I think Coach Clark knows how to tap into like a student athlete.
And he coaches the men's and the women's?
Yeah.
The boys and girls, I guess it would be in high school. Okay, so then you go to states. At this point you're still like appear like a girl. Yeah?
No, not at all.
So you used to be like short hair.
Yeah, I'll even give you photos if you want to put it in the podcast and everything too, like how I look like. Like I was the definition of like you could already tell. Like even when I was in 4th grade, there was people that like I looked actually more like a girl because like my hair was longer, but I would still get mistaken for a guy because I look like a guy like so much.
I watched a documentary on Hulu, Changing the Game. Yeah, and there's like the picture of you as a like a little girl, and I think it was your grandma was saying something like, we got her in a dress, or got him in a dress, I'm sorry, but like, and then had to take this one. It's like you in like a leather jacket on like a motorcycle.
Yeah, bro.
So I do want to come back to the wrestling thing, but just I think it's important to go to like, when did you know that you weren't in the right body? Like, how do you, and how do you frame it? Because you're the 5th trans guest that I've had. And what's interesting, and of course, is trans people are diverse. Black people are diverse. White people are diverse. Whatever it is. These singers outside of our window are very diverse. So, everyone kind of has a different like take on it. But what was your experience? Like, as long as you can remember, like, do you remember having like a conscious thought, like, I'm not like that, there's something off? Like, how does that, can you just like bring the audience in?
It had to do with like tendencies to like, I guess, want to be with somebody. Like what was like envisioning of like how I saw myself with somebody that I want to be with.
In like a romantic way?
In a romantic way, like especially even on like a physical level, like how was that like processing to my brain of like, hey, like I had this like concept of like, I like this girl. Like I like this girl like in elementary, and like it developed into a thought and another thought and then another thought, and then like the feeling of like looking in the mirror and looking at myself and like, something's not quite right.
So yeah, but why wouldn't the go-to be that you're gay? Like, wouldn't that be the go-to? Would be like, all right, well, I'm attracted to that, so that would mean that I might be a lesbian. But it wasn't just that, right? Yeah. So it started off maybe that, like, you start thinking like maybe I'm gay. Or you were so young, I guess.
To be honest, like the concept of like the LGBTQ and being gay wasn't even like occurring like at the time.
I guess we're in Texas area.
DFW area.
Okay.
Like it wasn't really like a huge thing.
Yeah.
At least in Dallas, like I know, like there's like LGBTQ clubs, but considering the fact that like just in my school and then my elementary school, my junior high, and my high school, it was a fairly new concept. Yeah. And even a lot of the other kids were like starting to question their sexuality, and I really was the only person that I knew until high school that actually had like a gender identity issue. And it was like really hard to like grasp, and I had to like literally come to terms with it when I had no choice to, because my grandmother and my mother started seeing that I was like depressed and I was down, and I couldn't really figure out why. Like I was so depressed, like I was doing everything that I could to be able to be the best version of myself, but like it still wasn't right. I would still look in the mirror like and be like, something's like not right. Like I don't feel, I don't look, I don't match the envisioned being that I have like within myself.
So it started with being attracted. Did you at any point were you like, hey, I think I'm gay?
No.
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 Oh,
I mean I thought about it, but then I was like,
that didn't feel right.
Yeah, because then I thought like, because I was like, okay, so like how does like that work with like like being gay and like sexually being with somebody physically, and I was like, well, I don't necessarily think that I would like that. I don't think that I think that the concept of having the physical part of a guy like on me, like me having it, like that's what I envision, like that's what I see. I feel so masculine and so like strength wise of like being a man, and I wanted that and just how I acted. It's definitely, I feel like, it was a rough time. It was, because that's a hard thing to like think about when you're like 10 years old. Like that's like a scary concept to think about, and it's kind of like I don't know if these feelings are legitimate, but they feel legitimate because like how else do I feel?
Well, you're figuring out the world, and young people, they're figuring out the world, like what is up, what is down, and that's hard enough if you are, if you're, whatever, like, straight, white, male, like whatever, like for me, like I'm all those like markers of like, ultimate privilege, and it's like, it was still really hard figuring out what you are, who you are, where do you fit in, all that kind of stuff. But then you start adding stuff that doesn't align with the people you see, then it's a whole new wrinkle. So depression in the trans community is probably the biggest concern. I think it's a concern of everybody, even people that are, to some degree bigoted and stuff like that. Like they say like, well, look at the, depression rates, the suicide rates, stuff like that. It's very real. You can't speak for everybody, Mack, but like for you and the people that you talk to in that community, what do you think that is? Is it completely societal? Is it not being accepted? or like to what degree? Because so many things are both like societal and biological, right? Just so many things.
I think I know where you're. I think I know what you're trying to talk about. I think it does, like, the reason why, like, it's such a prominent thing and why it affects, like, the trans community so powerfully is in the sense that we need a sense, like, we're human beings. We need a sense of belonging. We need a sense of community. We need a sense of knowing that, you know, we are going to be loved and we're going to get our needs met. And that's like our basic needs of just being human.
Right.
And to feel like how a trans person feels and to think about the things and go through the things that they go through, especially what I've gone through.
Yeah.
You have to have a good mental and emotional, physical sense of connection and reality to others. And I feel like, you know, I think family like is a number one cause of, like, you know, why trans people feel rejected, because like that's your family. I feel like you know how people are always like, yeah, like family's everything, and your family's supposed to support you. Your family is supposed to, like, be there for you. And like on another note, why it's so hard is just, you know, trying to figure out who you are, like trying to, you know, figure out like why do I feel like this?
Well, there's conflict, right? I mean, there's natural conflict going on in your body. There's a conflict between the way you were born and the way your mind is wired. Yeah, there's a conflict there.
It's challenging, just like the basic and societal typical social institutions that we try to, like, justify today. And justifying the binary system, like, literally my mind was justifying the binary system of what I've learned my entire life and what I've known,
and it just doesn't add up to the way your brain is wired. So I mean, there's no real denying that. The idea that your brain is wired differently than other people's brains, who are wired differently than this person's brain. Like, we're all unique individuals. But would you say that it's entirely societal, or would you say that there's just a natural, if you were raised in a household, because today I'm in Los Angeles, it's very progressive here. There's a lot of parents that are like, I am super proud of my, you know, whatever trans kid or whatever it is. Like, and I don't know, I don't know that beats out all of the dark places. You know, like, people still go to a dark place. So is it somewhat biological, do you think? Yeah, like, I mean, or what percentage is it? Like,
I think it definitely could be more definitely biological, in a sense of, like, you know, what kind of mental health issues go on, like, is going on, like, genetically, like, through your family history. I feel like, you know, it's something that it needs to be discussed, because I feel like, you know, therapy is very essential. I want to be a therapist. I strive to, you know, continue to make that available to the community and to anybody. I think that's like a basic need and necessity for, you could say that you can go through life alone, but you will go absolutely mad insane. It's you have expression and being able to like have a critical thinking and thought process of going throughout life and going out through becoming the person that you're trying to envision for yourself and contribute to society in a way that's, like, beneficial. So there's no way.
Therapy is so important. I think of it like a think tank. Like, you need another angle on trying to work out what's going on in your head. And the reason why people, I think especially a lot of dudes, are against therapy is it's ego. You know, it's like talking about your problems and showing emotion and all that kind of stuff is something that guys are just very hesitant to do. But it's the way to become a more, like, fulfilled person and happier person and more content person and more aware person, all of that kind of stuff. But I think that's important, just to, like, recognize, like, you know, how, like, there's a lot of kids today, like, that are, like, coming out, like, groups of girls are coming out as, like, trans together now. That's, like, a trend that I've seen. Like, I have family in Massachusetts, and, like, there's, like, middle school girls who are, like, a group of 3 or 4 of them, like, hey, we're trans now. And it's like, I wonder, and this, I might be off on this, but I want to get your thoughts, is we, like, the very progressive, I don't know in Texas, but, like, I'm in this kind of bubble here, like in West LA, like, there's a way to, like, celebrate, because trans individuals have been so just crushed and marginalized by society for so long. We want to like fix that, and so we celebrate it, which I'm all for. But for a kid who doesn't get any kind of recognition for anything, hasn't achieved a lot in their life, if they just say, hey, I am, represent this kind of marker or something like that, because they're confused, maybe they're gay, maybe they're just not sure about, life or whatever, and then they get held up as like as celebrated in their community for being trans. Like, I don't know, because I don't want to say that like they're not really. I don't want to say that, but like I'm confused by what this is. Have you seen any of those trends, or like what are your thoughts on that kind of stuff?
I have never seen that. Like, this is the first time that I'm hearing about that, and just from initially hearing about it, I am just concerned on another level of like, what is this individual learning? What is the kid? What is their idea of what being trans is, and what is their idea of just like gender and sex in general? Because I feel like, in order to have a grasp of what being trans is, like, you have to have a full understanding of what sex and gender is, and the different variations of it, like of it being truly just genitals and hormones being biological,
right?
And but besides that, like gender wise, like sexual reproduction, that's
right.
what biology is, and yeah, that's concerning. I would be concerned.
Well, because I guess what I'm saying is like it was so hard for you. From just what I've known, just from watching the documentary, and just like reading a little bit about you and stuff like that. I want to get more into it, but like it was fucking hard, man. Like I can't imagine how hard it was for you. It would have been way easier for you not to. But if you're in an environment that celebrates it and you are a hero for being it, like some kids might just be like, well, I'm going to go in that direction, and not really. Like they're not going to take hormones or anything like that, but just maybe just to get some like, I don't know. And I don't know how prevalent that is.
Sort of like recognition. I mean, if an individual has the willpower to try to become a individual that they're trying to pretend to be, that fantasy is.
They're not getting hormones. They're not getting surgeries. I'm not saying like they're just kind of coming out as saying like, hey, I'm kind of playing with this idea type of thing. They're not committing to it all the way.
They're not. Well, even then, like that's worrisome, because like if you commit to it for so long, and then like it almost like kind of like makes you question like yourself on like why do I say that I am trans? Because then it makes, if you aren't, then like it's kind of, I find it a celebration, but like don't say you're trans when you're not.
Yeah.
Because then that makes the issue worse.
And they might just be young and figuring it out. Like one of my good friends, Michael, I don't think he's been on the podcast, but he's my son's godfather. He's gay. When he was young, he was like trying to figure this out. And I think it was confusing, because again, it was like a similar thing, like, oh, I'm not attracted to that. I'm not attracted to this, blah, blah, blah. And he put on one of his sister's dresses. And his parents said, and I don't think this is like the right approach, but his parents said, no, boys wear pants and girls wear dresses or something along those lines. And he's like, oh, okay. But he said, if my mom would have said, yeah, go for it, you want to be a girl, you're a girl, he would have like, okay, cool. But he's not. He's gay. Yeah. He's a dude who's gay, and it would have caused him all kinds. He said, and again, this is just his experience, but he said it would have caused him all kinds of turbulence. Like, wait, am I trans, or because he was young?
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I okay. Now from that perspective, I think it comes to the fact of like, what is the individual learning? What is the parents doing, or what can we do in order to better educate these kids? Like for instance, like the human rights campaign has educational system tools for schools and staff administrations, and for student bodies, to where they had these talks about just like the binary system, the non-binary system, educating the fact that like the safe places, and what it means to be trans, and what it means to just be in the LGBT community. So really like attacking the idea of being queer.
Right.
So I think just like more education would be really beneficial, and I think once we start like involving these organizations to where they can have the power to do that for schools and the educational system. I think that, it's good to celebrate, but also know when it's a celebration and also when you're trying to be true to yourself.
Yeah. I think of gender and biological sex as like hardware and software. Does that make sense to you? Like the hardware of the computer, like versus like the software is like the hardware is what the computer kind of like is, like looks like, but then the software is like the system that it's running. So if you say like biological sex would be your hardware, genitals you're born with, things like that, how tall you are, all that kind of stuff. And then your software would be, so your hardware could be like female, but then your software is male.
Yeah.
And then
that's that's a really good thing that like I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's kind of cool to talk about, because when I'm talking to my girlfriend and I'm having to relate to her in a sense of like being able to let my guard down, being able to not be so like my ego is like let go. And that's kind of like stemming from the fact that I was a girl and I was having to deal with just the fact of, the lightness of, the human body.
It might make you a better boyfriend. You tap into it, because there's so many times with my wife where I'm like, I don't get you. Well, she's pregnant now, so her hormones are crazy.
But no, even sometimes I don't get it, and I think this had to do with me taking hormones. I ended up reverting, and my grandmother was like talking to me about this. She was like, somehow you keep like you're regressing in the fact of what it means to understand a female, and I was like, what? I was like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, you're getting male brain. That's what you're getting. I was like, well, fuck.
Yeah, well, dudes are like we're like cavemen, right? So yeah, I mean, well, and hormones make sense, because all you are electrical signals in your brain and chemicals. That's all that guides everything. Okay, so I'm sorry. So going back, we're kind of Tarantinoing this whole thing.
Yeah.
So going back to freshman year. Oh,
yeah. Well, I want to bring it like
Please.
to just a conversation of like, when we're talking about like, transgender athletes, and whether they should be in athletics or not, and especially kids. Every human being grows and develops and goes through the same things that every other human being goes through. I think that, this topic in sports is going to come to the ultimate conclusion of just hormones in general, because we take a look at,
hormones for kids. Should kids get puberty blockers, hormones, stuff like that?
I feel like puberty blockers is definitely, okay for an adolescent to get. I say around the age of like 13. And I feel like that was very beneficial for me taking it very young. And it definitely helped because it stopped a lot of the growth that I was starting to feel, and that I was, I started like really growing into like the female body when I was 13, and I wasn't able to get on hormones and puberty blockers when I was like 15, 16. So I was like developing, but then I like stopped developing, and so like my entire body was like put on pause. It was like, it was such a weird transition, man.
Well, that's the controversial thing, right? Because there could be kids who are like, maybe I'm trans, but then they go, and then so they take hormones or puberty blockers, then they go, no, I'm not. Like, it's possible, right, that people are confused and change their, like, I don't know. I mean, I know several people who were gay for 10 years of their life, and then now they're married with kids and they're not. Mostly women, but like they were like lesbians, lived with women and stuff like that, and then now they're married and have kids, and they're just like, that was a phase of my life. Like, I think that's the concern. I'm not voicing it. I'm still working this stuff out. I don't know, but I do know that a lot of people say, like, what if you give a kid these hormones or puberty blockers, and then they go, you know what? I'm actually not trans. I'm just a gay woman or whatever.
It's supposed to be initially not harmful. When they do like stop, they use the puberty blockers. It's kind of like they put it right here in your arm, and it's essentially the same thing as if a female was
like a patch?
Birth control.
Oh, it's like a patch?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, not patch, but like it's like a cylinder, like long, like tube looking thing.
And they put it inside?
Yeah, they just
it's like a little surgeon?
like in your muscle, and like that's it.
Yeah.
And it affected me, but like only in a sense to where like, you know, I was putting my body in the most extreme cases. So I mean, there's still like a lot of research to be done on it. I definitely do
Yeah.
agree. In a sense of like, you know, what would have been, you know, the picture of like if I was able to compete with the males and I was able to receive the proper dosage of developing
Right.
at the age that I was and being able to develop at that age as a guy. But I feel like I definitely would be in a better place development wise because I mean, I just
You
look
would
like I'm
start earlier.
16 years old
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
and I'm 22, man.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I think about that. I'm like, well, like what, you know, what is this doing for me? And I have to watch my body every single day. I have to like, you know, really, I weigh like 140 pounds now.
And you wrestled at 110, 112?
Yeah, dude.
Well, but these are the conversations that we need to have, Mac, because what happens is, and I think that this is especially like gay rights, they came so far so fast. I mean, Biden and Obama were against it in like 2010. So this is really quickly how accepted, like even like mainstream Republicans and stuff are like, yeah, gay marriage, whatever. Like, and part of what happened that I saw when like studying this is there was a lot of grace. Like, if I would mess up your pronouns or I would, you know, dead name you or something like that, like if you would jump all over me, you know, how I'm a bigot and I'm a homophobe, I'm a transphobe and stuff like that, and shut me down, then I just kind of go back to my corner. I'm just like, all right, well, then we're not going to get anywhere. There has to be grace because this is new and there has to be a conversation about, let's do research on what do the hormone blockers do? What do the puberty blockers do? I'm sorry. You know, like if you screw up, that kind of stuff, like, it's just like, hey, actually, you know, identify this way, blah, blah, blah. All good. Let's move forward. I think the vast majority of people will go, okay, but I'm worried about the activist wing in the LGBTQ community that screws it up because they're just figuring it out, and then they get just jumped on. You know what I mean? And that's a real concern of mine because we're not going to advance that.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of the, you know, when a trans person goes to transition, the number one thing that like happens first before there's any transitional process, whether it be physical or mentally solidifying the fact that like that's what they want and that's who they are. You have to go through like weeks of therapy, and then on top of that, I know that at least for me in Texas, I had to go through 2 years of therapy and before I was even like able to go to the hospital and have the conversation of, you know, puberty blockers and hormones.
Do you think that's a good thing, or
I
do you think
thought
it's too much?
no, it definitely. Yeah. I think it was just the right amount because it helped me deal with a lot of things that, you know, I was dealing with inside and how I was channeling that out towards like people or like situations and you know, how did I really feel about it, like what was really the root cause of like this problem, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I was able to find the root cause of the problem, I was able to really like shed light on like who I am as a person and being able to come to terms with that.
Yeah. If someone gets that stuff wrong, if they do dead name you or something like that, just to be like, let's talk about it and show that grace. I think that's how we're going to get through this stuff. Getting back to trans sports. So changing the game was really good. I do, cards on the table, I do see your situation different than the other two women on the in the documentary. Okay, so I think when we talk about trans athletes, I do think that we're actually talking about trans women in competitive, especially combat or explosive dynamic strength sports. We're not talking about equestrian. We're not talking about trans men. But one of the things that was really frustrating was like watching you at these women's wrestling competitions. You're getting booed, and they're booing you. You're like, yeah, I don't want to be here either. This sucks for me too. So everyone is pissed off at the situation, and that sucks. That sucks for everybody involved. It's so clear that you should be competing with the guys because it's hard. Nong Rose, I've talked about, she's a Muay Thai champion, born male, transitioned to female, but still fights the dudes and like dusts them up, you know, head kicks them and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah. Now I'm not saying they should have to, but I'm saying that it is a different thing when you are born male competing with females and smashing records compared to transitioning from female to male, you were at a severe disadvantage, Mac. Like you had to bust your butt probably way harder than a lot of your male counterpart or biologically male counterparts just to overcome the nature's like hand that was dealt to you.
I feel like
I might be off on that. What are your thoughts?
I feel like I evolved on another level of, in a sense that, because I realized this. I realized this, especially in college in wrestling, guys. I wasn't training a lot more than I was when I was in high school, but I was still able to keep up with the guys. And
Well,
it was the fact that I really got spiritually into like just transferable energy, doing the right things properly for my body, technique, being able to get on a more micro level understanding of how to develop as an athlete rather than just training so hard every single day. Like it was definitely, it made me realize, especially when I started seeing that, when we're having this conversation that of trans women in sports. I don't think that not all trans women are smashing records.
No, they're not. But some are.
Some are.
And even if they're not smashing records, that might be because they are relying more on their strength and not on their technique. Like I might be stronger than someone else in Olympic weightlifting, but they can lift more weight than me because they have perfect, like clean technique. Mm-hmm. So they're not smashing. But if we play this out, won't trans women be smashing records?
I don't think so.
No?
Because you take a look at Andrea and Terry.
Yeah.
They lost their senior year to cis female athletes.
Okay.
And that's the thing, is like we don't talk about the losses,
right? Which we need to get a better understanding, a better like a better view of what's actually going on here.
Yeah,
we see Andrea just like smashing everybody. Andrea, and I forget
it's the media, man. It's the media like trying to hijack the narrative of of what is a trans athlete, and
right.
In general, somebody who like, first, let me ask you: am I the first trans person that you like really have ever met, or like have ever like?
No, because you're the fifth person I've had on the podcast that's trans.
Okay. Okay. But I can't use that scenario.
But I'm unusual. I think for a lot of people.
In a sense, like no, but every day in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any close friends that are trans.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have people on my phone that I'll call about certain things.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like for someone to to really know somebody who is trans and to be able to understand the macro level of what they go through. It's the same thing as every other cis human being goes through. It's just the fact that it's just a little bit more complicated. The brain works a little bit more differently, and we're just wired completely in a different way. That's like it's hard to understand. Like if I was a cis person, and and having to wrap my head around the fact that the whole idea of biology and being taught to you as an individual, and how is it the fact that someone can be born the gender that they don't identify as but identify as something else. Like that would be really confusing. I completely understand that, and we do need to have neutral conversations and have a neutral stance when we're talking about these things, because it's a hard concept to grasp. Like sometimes I'm just like sitting there like, dang, like it's crazy how I've gotten here, because it feels like impossible, but like we're
here. You're here. I mean, I guess what people do is they look at the 85th percentile female can throw a baseball at the 20th percentile male. Like there's just those things where biological men are physically stronger in things like where you talk about like in fighting sports, weightlifting sports, sprinting and stuff like that. But then you add hormones to it, you add that kind of stuff, then it does change it. So would there be some, because I think we have to hammer out some nuance here, Mac, if we can. Like how do we get through this? Should they require you to have to be on hormones or be surgery? Because if you do that, now it's pricing people out, because this stuff's expensive. So if you can't afford it, now you could say you could be if I say
that's why
I'm trans,
gender affirming care should
be covered.
Be covered.
Yeah.
It should be covered. I had to pay like $6,000 out of pocket
Right.
for like my top surgery, which is like fucking ridiculous.
Well, and
Like,
also, if people say like they're going to abuse the system, no, they're not. Look, there's a lot of systems being abused right now, whether it's like social welfare programs or whatever. I mean, even like with corporations. But no, you're not going to say, "Hey, I can get my breast removed for $6,000 because the government's going to pay for it, so I'm going to do it." The only people who are going to go through those things are people that are really committed to.
yeah, because it's tough.
Yeah,
like, it was like a whole 6-month process to like just get out of the bed and everything, and it was just like, it's funny how people think that is like this is something that is something that we're choosing. Like of course we choose it,
Right.
but in a sense of like, this is what we need as a basic human need, as a human being, for an individual to have and want and need.
Yeah.
Like it's something that's like life saving. It's
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think people are going to abuse that. They're not going to abuse it. So to say like, well, it shouldn't be covered for whatever reasons. I don't think that's a great argument. But if let's just say we're not there yet because of universal healthcare, single payer healthcare, or whatever. If you don't have any surgeries or hormones though, and you're biologically male, but you identify as female, you would be at an advantage, right? I mean, so how do we play that out?
I have to like be the bad guy, like in a situation.
Please, no. I mean,
it's true. Like like if we're gonna like have this like conversation of equality and fairness, and we're trying to get to that ultimate kumbaya of being able to not see the complete binary system, being able to separate the fact that males are superior and women are not superior. Like for me, I think women are superior and men are inferior.
In what way?
In a way of the sense of like just being able to like go through life, being able to have like thought processes and how like a male like goes through a thought process.
Oh, okay. But you're not talking about in athletics.
Like what
no, I'm just you're not talking about in athletics. Women are superior, like physically, like.
I think women could be superior in athletics. I've seen women in my life that were superior to the men that were just at an elite level. Like,
right, but at the tails they wouldn't be, right? Like if you take the 100 athletes and you take like the top of, you have a room of 1,000 people, you take the absolute strongest person in the room, it's going to be a male. Like you take the average dude and the average girl, like they might not be that different. But you take the extremes, most likely the extreme strongest person would be like there. That's why we have like male and female like sports categories.
I think that to hell with it, to hell with female and male sports categories. Like I wouldn't be butthurt if like a woman kicked my ass. Like if she rightfully deserved it, so like she worked harder. And we talk about the sense of like like the people at the top level. That's because they're the top level. And if you're a top level athlete, truly a top level athlete, and with the mindset of competitiveness and just being overall just like great, like you just don't want to just be great in just like one category. You want to be overall like great, like the best, the greatest of out of anybody. Like we talk about like being whole and being societal and coming together as one. So why don't we do that? Why do we have these separations of the self, of like being able to like just see black and white when literally like it's gray?
I think they that's my other son's name actually, Gray. I think the issue though would be like in the NBA, I think they would. I really do. I mean, I have friends in the military and they said like, look, I don't care if a transgender or a woman wants to be a Navy SEAL and she can run fast, jump high, shoot straight, and do all of it. Sure, we don't care. And I think if a girl could play in the NBA and hang, I think it would be fine. But that hasn't shown up.
It's because what you do you know what I think it is?
No,
I think it's because of the past 80 to 100 years now. Like women have just now been able to have the rights to be able to grow and develop and evolve into what it really means to be a woman. And I think with men, especially like back in the 1920s, 1930s, like women didn't have that power to be able to challenge challenge the societal roles that was being played and occurring then, because it still occurs and happens now. So if we can like the the system is being challenged, and I see in the sports world that more and more women are starting to become more superior at not just the female, like the woman level of competition, but also like the male level. So like to me, like male and female like records or being an athlete like doesn't really like come to my mind, because I'm just like it's like what is an athlete, like how are you overall as an athlete?
That's interesting. Like, I don't know. I have trouble. I mean, it might be, but I have trouble going down that road because I just think like males, you take whatever NFL. Like, I don't know if there is a woman on the planet that can play like as like an NFL lineman, but maybe there is. But like just the biological hurdles we've evolved over hundreds and thousands or millions of years. And
because like coaches don't allow women to compete on a football team. They don't allow them to be able to commit to that, opportunity to be able to develop in that, type of skill. For instance, like I feel like I would have done great in football. I ain't gonna cap. Like I had like a wicked like curve and I could catch. And my coach wouldn't allow me to play. So like, what would have been the path if, my coach did allow me to let me to play on the guys football team and be able to evolve and develop and grow into that societal role and skill.
So you think that the idea of like men's and women's sports should probably just blend together? Like
I think
as like if we're talking about
ready.
No, I'm saying that was like a goal.
Like, yeah, like definitely. I think as a goal, I think like it goes like I think of like Mad Max.
Yeah.
Like it's I think like the world isn't ready yet to let go of a separation of just seeing that there is a higher purpose to like living.
I'm not sure. I don't know. This like it might be. I read something about how Serena Williams years ago went up against, played a guy who was ranked like 350th and lost in straight sets. And she's Serena Williams, so like.
Well, wasn't she on like a losing streak anyway?
She might have been. Yeah, she might have been. But even so, like if she would go up against whoever was top, Andy Roddick or I don't even know, tennis player. But like it might be. I guess the only way to figure this out would be to test it, right? To say like, hey, if you can, because I do think I'm with you, Mac. Like I think that if a girl could show up and play well, I want you on my team. Like if you can score, I want you. I don't care. I don't care what you got between your legs. I don't care what you're attracted to. Can you? It's like almost like it's like business. Exactly. It's like business. Like, can you make me money? I don't give a shit. And I think that if we have that attitude, then it'll naturally play out. And then you might be right, and then women can play stuff. Because even here's another thing. I had Clarissa Phelan on my podcast. She's a small woman. She's like 5'1", like 120 pounds. She's a cop in San Antonio. And what she said, I was like, do you have to worry because like you have to apprehend these big dudes and stuff? She's like, no, because I know I'm physically smaller, so I pick up on social cues. I pick up on body language. I pick up on all those little things because I don't have that brute strength. So in that way, she's a better cop. So there could be a way that hey, I'm physically less equipped or whatever it is. I don't have the physical like wattage, so I have to do other things.
Skill level of, like being like more aware.
Yeah.
Like I call it like opening your third eye. Like opening your third eye to the fact that like there's like little cues in the world that like happen, and it like gestures that like reach out to you, and it's like it like sparks something in the brain to where like you react to it.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I think people can get behind is like, look, if there is a girl that can play, that can beat men in men's track, she should run in men's track. If there's a girl that can play in the NBA, she should play in the NBA. Until then, maybe have a WNBA to develop skills and to give that to other girls, and then we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. The only reason why I argue so hard in a sense of like, women are not that different from men, or men are not that different from women, is the fact that, we take a look at the two Olympic biologically born female athletes, just produces higher testosterone.
Yeah.
And
they got flagged, right?
Yeah, they got flagged.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so what is the definition that we're really trying to tell people of what it is to truly be a man or to be a woman?
Yeah.
And to compete. Like,
Yeah,
It's
because
like that's unfair.
what do you do with that?
It's unfair.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, so that's like, I think we have to test these things out. We have to get further and further here. And one of the things that came up, just like Steelman, having trans women in women's sports would be like, I think it was mentioned in the documentary, like for a lot, like it's really hard to figure out your way in a trans life. And like some people, like sports is your thing. It's your thing, and you take that away, like taking away something for someone who's susceptible to suicidal thoughts and depression, taking away their one passion seems like a recipe for disaster, especially when you're talking about youth sports. You know, like you need somewhere to excel. One of the best tips I give my students who are, you know, struggling with a lot of things in life, it's like find something that you're good at. Find something that you can just work really hard, that you love the grind of, and you can work really hard at. And to take that away from a kid is brutal.
Yeah, there's like something very primitive about the, you know, just like sports in general, and being able to, like on a team level, being able to compete together and, you know, be together and like have a trust and a bond and a companionship, and you know it stems deeper. Sports stems deeper into like, you know, just being competitive. It's life saving. It teaches life lessons, like for you to remember out until you die, man.
Yeah.
And it's going to be pivotal if these bills get passed.
Right.
They continue to keep being passed.
So just to like wrap this part up, like, do you see a difference in your situation, female to male competing with dudes, as opposed to male to female competing with women? You don't see that as different, like the way I do it?
Yeah, I definitely, like, I see the difference, like with it, like, well, what would you consider like different about just the sense of like, you know, the whole issue of
you picked a harder road.
Yeah.
You're like, you picked a really hard road. Like if we're just gonna say, like, you know, just open it up.
I am still challenging, but forever challenged. You know, the concept of like what it means. Like what if I was born a male, how have I got to this level? And I'm just like, you know, 22 years old, and I, you know, don't look like anything like a 22-year-old man, but I had the strength and I had the power.
Oh wow, I think you look like a 22-year-old man.
Do I? Yeah. No, I don't think I do.
What do you think you look like?
I think I look like 18 years old.
Oh. No, I mean, I don't know. 18-year-olds look like babies, man. No, I mean, and also the difference between 18 and 22 is I think you look like a 22-year-old dude. So I think, so figuring this stuff out, I guess one of the things that I thought of, and it might not be right, but like, let's say Laurel Hubbard wins Olympic gold. She might not, but if she wins Olympic gold, is that going to be better or worse for the trans athlete community?
It's so bittersweet right now. Man, it's like, it's hard to tell. Like it's a celebration, but it's also chaotic in a sense. Like, you know, we're not going to be able to get in a point of like it being a true celebration until we are able to move forward as a society of accepting the fact that, you know, transgender individuals and transgender athletes like belong in sports. Like,
yeah, it's really tricky, like, because again, if you don't have to transition with hormones or anything like that, there are people that will abuse it. Like when the bathroom thing came up, you know, about trans bathrooms, you know, go use the bathroom with which you identify. The issue was never, I mean, for some people, but I think reasonable people, the issue wasn't that trans people would go in some sort of and be sexually attacking or anything like that. It was people who would abuse the system. It'd be, if it was at like a school like this, like a teenage boy who's just like, I want to go in and see some girls doing stuff. I don't know. I want to see what they're up to, and just walk in and be like, oh, identified. Like lying to abuse the system was the issue, and I worry about that if we do trans women. If you don't have to get, you know, hormones and stuff like that, they're just gonna say like, oh, I'm gonna go in just to kind of like make a mockery of it, because people are trolls, people are assholes, people do play that kind of stuff.
That's
look
why
for
we need to
weaknesses
pick up on
in the
those
system.
social cues of being able to identify like what's fantasy and what's reality. And, you know, therapy, having you know, a therapist, probably a part of the school system, is a good thing. Like, because like people like I said, you could identify if somebody's like not being their true self. It can be seen. Like, you just don't like walk throughout life every single day putting on like a fake mask. Like you can put on a fake face all you want, but like it's at the end of the day, like you gotta go to bed as like the true version of yourself.
Yeah, but Mac, I have a problem with you. It's a compliment though. I have a problem with you the same way I have a problem with like a lot of like super geniuses or like Dan Crenshaw, who's like a conservative, the iPad is like, you're not normal. Like you've done a lot of like self-assessment. You're self-aware. You think about things a lot. You think about your place in the world. You think about yourself. A lot of people, like I'm active on social media, a lot of people don't do they don't look in the metaphorical mirror at all. They don't look at how their behavior actually is. They're so wrapped up in their own narrative. You're very self-aware. Like in the one scene where you're giving your testosterone.
Like a lot of things, man. Like
yeah, you are. That's not normal though, Matt. Like you're not normal in like you've come to this place in your life by really thinking about everything. A lot of people don't think about a lot. They just kind of coast. And I think they might make decisions that are just all over the place. And they might, when you say like people don't walk around with like a fake mask, I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people do, and they don't think about it. It might not have anything to do with trans, but just people in general.
I think I can actually counteract with the fact that like it's funny how you say that like you put on a fake face. Like for instance, like this is like I'll be completely honest, like this is like a version of myself that like I'm acting as my true self, but like not my true self, because like I have to be presentable for society in a way that's like contributing in a way that like this is me, but I'm also a respectful young man. I have values. I have generosity, love, and companionship to give. And you get that side of me, like you get that version of myself, and that's what I am self-aware of. I'm aware of the fact that what are my social cues in order to be able to trust you, right, and be able to be open about the fact of like all these things. I'm like the opening up to myself, like about my life, in a sense that like I'm aware of the fact that whatever I tell you right now, like would it affect me, like if you were to say something either positive or negative? Like negative, no, it wouldn't, because like you are just another person, and I'm just letting you know my story. I'm letting you know my version of myself that I am comfortable with. And if you were to be positive, then it's like it's gratifying to know that. It's gratifying to know it's like gives you a leap of faith to like keep on trusting people,
going in that direction,
being able to know that the social cues that you were able to pick up on, like that's pivotal in order to relate later on. If I were to talk to somebody else, being able to identify those social cues again and being able to have a community so I could trust.
Yeah, which is hard because a lot of people probably are uncomfortable, and not even because they're bigoted necessarily. Some definitely are, but also it's just like I don't want to offend you. I don't want to say the wrong thing, so people are just like careful about that stuff. But
my girlfriend says the same thing. Like she had there was this trans guy that she was talking to, and she asked a question, and he completely took it the wrong way and like reacted like in a very like obnoxious way. And I'm just like, listen, if we are ever going to get to a point to where like we need change, and that change is going to happen, and people like, this is a hard concept for people to grasp. Like if and being a trans individual just in general, like for me it was hard to grasp just for myself. I can only imagine what it means like if somebody doesn't understand, then they're not going through it. So like it's okay to be asked questions, obviously in a respectful manner, but like if somebody wants to know something, like just educate them. Like it's the whole point of the process of creating change and being the change, is changing the narrative and being okay with like changing the narrative.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up, like you're a fighter. You're a literal fighter. So do you think that helped you get through the turbulent depression thing that comes from being trans? Because I picked that up from you, and it might be just me projecting, but pick it up of like when you see an obstacle, you go right for it. And when you're like, you have those dark shadows in yourself, which we all have those dark shadows. We all have conflict in ourselves.
Dude, my demons get the best of me sometimes.
Right. But you find a way to conquer them. Do you think that helped you through it?
Yeah.
You're being like a fighter, like a literal fighter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
Like
like
a real, like, fuck you to that dark side coming in, right?
yeah, it's like sometimes when like I'll be sitting there like I'm just like, nah bro, like this ain't me. This
Yeah.
ain't me, this is not gonna happen. Like something's gotta change. Like I gotta be the change. And like
Right.
I've really like dig deep in like being spiritual and spirituality and my sense of like how my energy is projected onto others, and I want my aura and my energy to be fulfilling.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that well, I want to get your thoughts. Like, what advice would you have or message for young trans people or parents who have like a trans kid, and trans athletes? Because I would think that attitude of like you can't, like, you're never out of the fight, like the Navy SEAL thing. Like, you're never out of the fight. You got to stay in that fight because it's gonna get dark. It's gonna get really, really hard,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you
I'm at the
have
front
to come
lines of
through
like
it.
doing all of this.
Yeah.
Like I a little bit of me giving up wrestling was the fact that I wanted to continue full time with devoting my time to helping these kids.
Yeah.
And I don't want another kid to throw away their dreams like I had to. Like I could only do like my dream for so long,
Yeah.
and have to wake up from reality and be like, this is essential right now. This is a pivotal moment in history
Yeah.
of like how are we going to go down this road, and then what's going to be down this rabbit hole when we start unfolding and asking all these questions and answering these questions and unethical and ethical questions of like what's gonna happen, like how are we supposed to do that, who do we like go to in order to like be trustworthy with this information.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of the things I went through in life and still go through life, like it's very informative and it's very eye-opening, and I just want to use my story and use it as a platform to be at the front of these lines and let the kids know that I'm here, and a lot of others like me are here
Yeah.
to protect you, to make sure that you have a future.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like, I think we're getting to a point where, I mean, the fact that it's even like a debate over trans athletes or specifically like trans women in women's athletics shows that if that's the controversy, then it's not nearly as much of the controversy as still exists, of course, but it's not
Yeah.
much as like trans people don't exist or whatever it is. Like we're moving the ball forward. We just have to be very careful on how to do it. And we have to do it right, and that's only going to come through conversations like this. So I really appreciate you being here.
I hope he learns a little something.
Yeah, and I think that even I think even where you and I see differently is like I think it's gonna pan out. When it comes to like women competing in men's sports and stuff like that, we'll see
It's
if it opens
eventually
it up.
the ending result is going to be whether or not there's only two results that could happen.
Right.
Whether it be that transgender individuals are shunned, but we can see that the more we talk about this conversation, the more we change the narrative,
Yeah.
the more people are banding together, and the more the mass is growing of like the love and acceptance of being as a whole society. Like I feel like the bad is getting weeded out, and the societal institutions of like being a challenge and the binary system being challenged, like that's starting to slowly like fade out.
Yeah, and look, if it turns out that trans women in women's sports do end up dominating, even with hormone stuff, that do end up dominating to the point where women athletics can't, they're not being able to. If that becomes the case, then we figure it out whether there's like a trans league or there's going to be some way that we can pivot. And I think that as long as all like compromise is kind of one of those things where you don't get everything you want, we don't get, or you. Like one side doesn't get everything they want, the other side doesn't get everything they want, but you kind of you get something that you want, and they get something. And America was founded on compromise. We got to find some way to compromise.
Yeah, and there's teams that are made and are getting made, with like that are trans teams.
Yeah.
And, so like in general, like I think it's just a common goal.
Yeah.
That we're all trying to trying to achieve, whether what that goal be of what it is.
Yeah.
But it's we're just trying to progress. We're trying to progress the best way that we can, and like that's all the world has to offer. Like,
and it's not simple. So we have to just get kind of dirty in these conversations, and I think
that's
that this
okay.
was
like it's okay to get dirty.
it was the only way that we're going to get somewhere. So awesome. Where can people follow what you're doing? Because you're becoming more and more active talking about these things.
The only social media platform that I really use is my Instagram,
Okay.
alpha.trans, and I post things from Chris Moiser to female sports, male sports, bodybuilding, healthy lifestyle, spirituality. So I just talk about a wide range of things and express a lot of things just about the world. So follow me on there. Any resources that anybody needs to want to look at, just hit me up, and I have the tools and resources to offer.
Absolutely, and changing the game. Everyone should watch.
Everyone should watch Changing the Game.
It's really, really good.